We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
You're looking well.
You're looking well. Jinx,
double jinx. You owe me a soda.
Oh, we have fun, don't we? What have you been eating?
Thank you for asking, Trent. Last night, I was in a work meeting and wasn't able to cook dinner. And Sophia, my very good friend and roommate, said that she would take care of dinner. I finished my meeting, and she presented me with a Chipotle burrito. And I was like, wow, this is magical.
So by making dinner, she really meant, I'm going to go to Chipotle and buy you a burrito?
To be fair, she works like a normal 9-to-5 job and then has an hour-long commute on the way back.
Oh,
So-
there's nothing wrong with it. I just am joking about the miscommunication.
Sure. Well, hey, I was not about to fuss over a Chipotle burrito, so I had that, but I left, uncharacteristically for me, I left a little bit for later because I got full. And this morning, I got up. I normally have my chai, but we actually ran out of milk, so I have to go run to Costco, pick up a few things. So I didn't have chai, but I had a yogurt. And then I was like, I'm not feeling satisfied. It was 11 o'clock. I was feeling pretty hungry, and I knew we were going to do the show. And so I finished my Chipotle burrito. What about you, Trent?
Yeah, any good Chipotle entree, burrito, or bowl, I think that should be 2 meals for
That's interesting.
for a little guy like me.
Trent, you're bigger than me. You're taller than me, at least.
Yeah, but aren't we concluding the same thing that it is?
But I wouldn't say 2 full meals, though, because I can...
1 full meal and then like a little snack. Nice.
Sure,
little snack.
I can live with that. Though I have to ask, do you get chips with your meal?
The way to do Chipotle, you go bowl, bag of chips. Those chips are salted like up to high heaven, and then you take the chips out of the bag and use them like, to scoop the contents into your mouth. It's awesome.
I'm not a bowl guy, which your reasoning, which is sound, is that you get more food for the same price.
I do believe that to be true, but sometimes I'm in mood for burrito, and burritos are delicious.
Burritos are usually my thing, so it's a little bit less, and I'm not really a order chips on the side kind of guy. Not because I'm against it, obviously. I just don't do that.
It's an extra cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that it doesn't, I'm not getting as much, as full as you are with half my meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
even
like
3/4.
4 tortilla chips is like, when you think about it, a tortilla. So a lot of flour there. I joked the other day, someone I did something, and I was like, that's the type of person who would order the tacos at Chipotle.
Brutal.
Because you know how the tacos, they're like so wimpy and small.
Wow.
Have you ever even seen those?
I used to be a taco guy from Chipotle. I switched to a burrito guy once I started hanging out with my friend Sophia, because she's a burrito guy, but sometimes she gets the tacos. So Trent, I might have to take this as a personal affront.
So I've never done the tacos, but I've just seen them, and it seems like they're really skimpy. Am I wrong? It seems like you're getting very little food for the amount of money you're paying for your entree.
Fulfillment per dollar is probably the least with the tacos. But I wouldn't say that they're skimpy. I would say that's like a solid meal is the 3 tacos that you'll get. It's just that the burrito can be fucking massive, and the bowl even more so. You know what I mean?
Speaking of bowls, I just had a bowl of Special K cereal. Good morning. Parth has stated all of his issues with the country of America, and
wow,
we could go on, and you could cancel the show if you wanted to.
Get kimmeled.
But every morning I wake up and I have a bowl of cereal that I bought from the grocery store, and I feel pretty freaking Americanized. Don't you?
You're pro the food industry in America. You're taking a stand against RFK Jr.
And I was talking to my mom, and we were talking about she was like, "Do you think you'll ever live abroad?" And I was like, "I don't know."
They ain't got
And
Special K there.
I know here's pretty fucked up, but everywhere else is also, when you talk to anyone from any other country, they're like, no, like, we're fucked up too. But there's a lot of America to see, and even when I was in England, Parth, I don't know if you knew, I studied abroad.
Wait, you studied abroad?
Which is all people who speak English and is very similar to America. I missed the comforts of home, the Special K of the world. Parth, however, is looking to flee the country.
Hey man, there's one major difference between you and me.
What? Because I'm 5'10" and you're like 5'9"?
No, the difference between you and me is that I think I'm ready to cue the intro.
And the thing with me was I wasn't, and that was the difference. But Parth, you talked me into it. Now we're the same. Now I too am ready.
You're also ready to cue the intro? Wow. What a happy family.
Recent convert. You know, Parth? If we're finally on the same page, let's do it.
Do it and cue it.
Do it and cue it. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film where they talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week is part 2 with editors of The Toxic Avenger Unrated.
That's right. We've got James Thomas and Brett Bachman finishing up their conversation about The Toxic Avenger Unrated.
So separately, they've worked on like a bunch of cool movies, and now they've come together and they both worked on this cool movie. It's awesome. Parth and I both went to the movie theater. We laughed. We cried. We
held hands.
We weren't with each other, but it felt like we were holding hands through Toxie, through the magic of the silver screen, and knowing we would get to come together after to discuss Toxie with its editors really was, what's the word, awesome?
Yeah, I would say awesome, fantastic, fantabulous. I would say that this
amazing.
This was a super cool interview. We get a little bit more into some specific stuff, which was cool. I think we really get into James's involvement with the movie, because Brett was sort of the main editor on this one, and then James comes in and, helps whip the movie into a little bit more shape.
Finished it off.
And the two of them are kind of the Avengers of the Toxic Avenger Unrated, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Like they really unite to solve a great battle, which was editing the movie,
What if Toxie showed up in Secret Wars? Do you think that'll happen?
Well, I think that they're going to tease it in Doomsday, and then...
Parth, don't leave early. It's like, there's a post-credit scene, okay? Like, you think the movie's over, but stay where you are, okay?
Yeah, stay right where you are.
Because
Toxie will return.
Toxie is going to show up. They're going to tease it.
But I think we've been teasing you, the listener, long enough, honestly, with our talk of Special K and Chipotle burritos. Why don't we just cue the interview?
It's what Toxie would want.
Just talking about like the tone and humor and violence of it all. I mean, it's like you guys are saying, it's such a specific sensibility. How much did you have to find that in the edit? Like, were you given options and then we're having to figure it out? Like that was the plan? Or was it just like, we know basically what we want and then it was just a matter of assembling it in that way? Can you just talk about, just getting that tone just right?
Yeah. I will say, I think the thing that was always relatively clear from the onset was the tone of the movie. Like, what are we going for? We are I don't know if we'll call it a sequel or reboot. I think even Macon's not really sure what to call it. I call it a
reimagining.
A reimagining, yes, because we are based off of existing IP. We are the Toxic Avenger, which is of course based off of this cult classic movie, and it was very clear from the onset Macon wanted to make a movie that honored the tone of this. He's like, this is a movie made for trauma fans. If there's one thing we have to get right, it has to be the tone. And so that was always pretty clear from the onset. One of the things that threw a bit of, not a wrench, but one of the things that was going to be different from the original is that it has grounded emotional stakes in this stepfather-stepson relationship. And so there's a degree of earnestness and sincerity that was very important to keep intact. So I think some of the early challenges in the editing process was trying to find the right balance between sincerity and camp and giant bombastic action set pieces and silly toilet humor with a hopefully an endearing story about these two people trying to create a little micro family. And that had a bit of ebb and flow to try and find the right balance. Some scenes as beautifully as they were performed by Peter, and then sometimes Louisa, who was our Toxie performer in the makeup, and then dubbing that over with Peter's voice. Sometimes we would find that some of these really beautifully performed scenes, maybe they just go on a little bit too long to kind of keep the wavelength hot, keep the tone up, and keep the ride going. So sometimes we'd have to compress these things a little bit or lose a little bit to kind of keep the energy up and keep the tone a little heightened. And vice versa. Sometimes we would find that we can't go so campy and so silly, so close to some of these scenes that are meant to be a little bit more sincere without them feeling a little bit more contrived. But in regards to like the heightened tone, like I mentioned, that was always clear we needed to kind of reach these levels of craziness and insanity, at most times. Some of the things that were not clear when we started was the amount of sound gags we would have in the movie. That's when I talk about like the Greek chorus and adding in these voices, adding in the general size of the soundtrack between our score, our needle drops, our sound effects. One of the ideas that Macon had at the onset of the assembly process was to give the mop like a particular character. He wanted this thing to kind of feel like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. And so we're recording little voices into our iPhones, importing that into the cut, reversing it, and giving it like this kind of black speech like thing. I think in reality, it's just saying stuff like, kill him, kill him, kill him, rip out his guts. And we throw that in the Avid and we reverse it. And I think the last thing that was probably not really, we didn't really know how to necessarily accomplish from the assembly point, even moving into director's cut, was this transformation sequence where Winston turns into the Toxic Avenger. I don't know if it was just my assumption of like coming into a studio film like Legendary, but I was expecting some kind of post-viz. I was expecting some kind of more assistance, like, okay, what's the plan for this transformation sequence? Where are the storyboards? Where is the animatics to kind of detail how this thing is going to happen? And then I realized after we're wrapping shooting and I'm talking to Macon, like there's a shot list. There really isn't anything in regards to animatics for how this thing is supposed to look. And we have some, Peter on blue screen and Macon shot a lot of practical elements like the eyeball filling with black goo. But there wasn't really much of like a very structured plan of how to build this thing out. And then I think I realized this is going to have to be something we figure out in the editing room. And as we're just getting started trying to build out scenes and find the tone of the movie, I think we just kept on kicking this can of this transformation sequence down the road, thinking like the cavalry will come in at one point. Someone from visual effects will come in and tell us how to build this. And then we're like week 6 of director's cut, and we want to start testing the movie for like small friends and family audiences. And we realize no one's coming. Like we have to figure out a way to build this thing. And we have the original that we're referencing, and of course we want to pay homage to the original transformation from the original, but it became clear to me like the size, the craziness of and the tone of this thing, I would have to take this out of Avid and like throw it into After Effects and build something myself. And so we spent about a week just like yanking all these elements out of the Avid, throwing them into After Effects and building like a rudimentary kind of animatic of how this thing is going to look. And it's probably some of the most fun I've had on the movie. I'm referencing things like Vertigo, the original, like I said, of course. We had to pay homage to the original with the Night on Bald Mountain track. That was something that had to be in there. And then just spent several days refining this thing, trying to find the right tone, coming up with ideas. Like I remember there's a bit where Peter is like has his mouth open and he's in this prolonged scream, and we knew we had to end the sequence on this eyeball filling with goo. So it's like, what if you have you could have this thing of like Peter falling and spiraling, kind of like this Hitchcock sequence. And then what if little Peter goes into big Peter's mouth, and then there's a flash and the eyeball turns black, and then you dissolve into the big black. All that stuff was kind of made up on the fly. We didn't really have any kind of concrete storyboards for all of this. So it was one of the more, I guess, creative contributions I got to make into the movie. And the overall structure of that, very much stayed the same all the way throughout until finishing process, when, the real visual effects artists come aboard and they take, that rough animatic. They're like, okay, we see what you're doing with this. We see what you're trying to do
I
with
don't
this.
think a frame of it was changed, Brett. You're being really modest. I literally think that, and that's what was so brilliant about that sequence, was it had this handmade feel, because you had literally got in there as the editor and figured it out. And I think that the tip of the hat to the original is really, really good, but it is a very bespoke sequence that you and Macon obviously spent a long time working on. You know, I completely, and literally, I think we added a couple of tendrils at the top of the frame or something, and that was kind of it. But it was, that was a great sequence that you guys created. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, in terms of the tone, to answer the question, I think really just echoing what Brett said, which is it was there, it was on the page, and Macon had it so clearly defined in his head. I mean, the one thing that I guess structurally changed when we came onto the movie was the opening, right? So the opening just did start in the journalist's office, and Mary Parent, one of our producers, I think quite rightly actually was troubled by the notion of how long it took to see Toxie, right? Or to see any of that sort of craziness. And so she came up with this idea. She just came to us one day and said, look, how about we just do a kind of almost like a cold open, right? So we're kind of tipping our hat a little bit to what's coming later. And originally, I think Macon didn't really like that idea, but we just kept reworking it. And so we have that sequences that lands now at the beginning of the movie, where he's narrating and he kind of tells, he's like, stop, shut everything down. We'll get to that later. And actually, how it evolved, I think, is a very effective piece of filmmaking, because it sets the tone in terms of Peter kind of driving the movie, owning the movie. And it also gives people a little bit of just a glimpse of the kind of mayhem and chaos that is about to ensue. I guess tonally, that was something that changed. And then, as Brett's saying, this idea of a Greek chorus, this commentary on, the lynch mob, basically, when they all go after him that night. And just then the performances, honestly, the relationship between Jacob and Peter was such an incredible kind of starting point, if you like, for the sincerity, and as Brett said, and I'll echo that what makes this different is it's not just gratuitous violence and nudity, which the first one maybe was. There's actually some real, you care about their relationship. So when you get to the end of the movie and they're sitting down and, he's making his famous kind of toast recipe for Jacob, it's like you feel like you've earned that, you've been on a journey, and you, although it's still messed up and dark as hell, he's been there for his kid. And I think treading that line is what makes this different. That if you as a director, if you were looking at this, I'm sure Macon was like, how am I gonna not just have this being schlocky kind of reboot, a remake? And I think that is the difference, is that you genuinely care, based on these actors' performances, about your leads. And that was such a carefully written and then cut and crafted thing, that's what gives the movie its USP, I think.
If it's possible for me to jump back really quick, James, I want to touch on something you mentioned about the cold open with the narration. I think it's, in a comedy, it is so important to set your tone right off the bat, to get an audience an expectation of what they're sitting down, what they're about to watch. And I remember early iterations of the movie we had before we had that cold open in the movie. There was a point of, I think we were kind of struggling to kind of set that tone right off the bat. We initially used to have these title cards that opened the movie with like different quotes from like Confucius and Sun Tzu. And I think there was even like there was a card that was meant to be very silly to try and set the tone. And at one point we were even like using like air horns and sounds to make it just sound so silly. And then you're getting into the Mel Ferd sequence with meeting JJ and the BTH cover up. And we didn't really have like a solid joke that kind of landed for like a few minutes in that sequence. So I remember going through the testing portion of this movie, and some of the feedback we got was just like, it took a while to kind of understand, like, not just a comedy, but you're like, a comedy with a capital C and a capital O. Like, it is very broad. And one of the things I really, really enjoy about this cold open is that with Peter's narration, I didn't want any of this, et cetera, and the hilarity of this little short sequence, you get immediately what this movie is. It sets the tone, sets expectations, and you're 30 seconds into the movie by this point. It sets all that up wonderfully. So, the next few opening scenes of the movie, you know what you're in for.
Can you talk about any more changes or clarifications that came as of the response of test audiences?
Yeah, let's see. One of the first things we did, and this was even back like during the Friends and Family screening, during director's cut. I think one of my favorite changes in the movie that got made was around the midpoint, which was the miss meet sequence, particularly after Toxie dispatches all of these goons in the fast food restaurant. He comes out, police draw their guns, they're about to shoot him, and the guy's like, wait, no, he's a hero, don't shoot him. This was structured and written, so you have some other scenes that happen chronologically at different points. So you had the miss meet thing, and then you had Winston's stepson, Wade, played by Jacob Tremblay, watching the news, and then he kind of pieces together, oh, wait, is that my stepdad, but hideously transformed later on? And then you had Bob Garbinger, played by Kevin Bacon, and his goons realizing that this is a BTH employee, we have to capture him. And that was happening later in the movie. We made a discovery that it might be more impactful if you intercut these scenes a bit more. And so in the try to make this midpoint revelation of Winston saying, sometimes you got to do something, sometimes you got to be that hero, which directly contradicts what he's saying in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Let's really dramatize that character arc, but also let's move Wade's scenes earlier. Let's move the scenes of his stepson watching all this happen on TV earlier. So he's making this discovery in tandem with the audience. And we discovered it had these really powerful emotional ramifications when you have this immediate cause and effect. Like I said previously, this scene was happening much later, but we moved it earlier. So you have Wade realizing that it's his stepfather, as Toxie is saying, yes, I guess I'm a hero now. And then you also have the Garbinger character realizing that this is a guy I need to fight. This is an adversary. So you have this immediate cause and effect that's happening right on top of each other. And it really raises the stakes of the movie and kicks the momentum going. And that's something we discovered in the test screening process, like wanting that midpoint to be a bit more powerful, impactful.
Is there a scene, and it could be different for both of you, or it could be the same one, that you found the most challenging one to put together? I mean, it might be the transformation sequence. Maybe you went deep on that, Brett. But yeah, if you could talk about that.
That's a good question. I actually have a list here. let me see what I...
Recounting the trauma.
Yeah. I was like, we talked about transformation sequence. I think there was a lot of feedback to try and get to that transformation sequence as fast as possible, like James mentioned. And so some of these early challenges came with the editing process was, how much do you compress? How much do what's the right balance of character development and tempo to get us to the end of the first act, to keep the audiences satiated, to keep their interest up? And I think a huge contributing factor to finding what made this work was this cold open that James detailed.
Yeah, I think that did allow us to, and it was a good note, right? I think written initially, we kind of eased way more into the movie, and Winston was maybe slightly indulgent in terms of the sadness around the character, and we kind of tried to just balance all of that up, with the ball, with the benefit, the gala, and just get through all of that kind of stuff a little bit quicker. And cumulatively, they're tiny little micro adjustments, but cumulatively you then find yourself where you hit the sweet spot where the transformation sequence lands. And it's all about cadence, right? It's all about getting to places with a movie like this, especially when it's driven by a lot of comedy. And so I think, yeah, that probably, from my point of view, was the biggest sort of, I wouldn't describe it as difficult. Nothing was difficult really on this movie. It was an absolute pleasure because Macon had such a brilliant way of working. And the producers trusted him and let him kind of, pitch his ideas. And so we'd work something up and then show it to them. And it was then became a discussion. It was a proper collaboration. But yeah, in terms of difficult scenes, I would say it was more of a kind of holistic approach at the point that I came up, because obviously Macon and Brett had shaped the movie pretty effectively by that point.
There was a lot of fun discoveries that we made, not necessarily challenging or difficult, but a lot of like fun things that we found that were addressing, questions that were coming in from some of these test screening audiences. Like I remember Zodiac's death, for instance. So there's a sequence, there's a Trauma Fest sequence where we have this rock band that's playing on the stage, and Toxie shows up and he dispatches all these goons because they're like the militant arm of this of BTH, the evil company in the movie. And very fun sequence to assemble. At times they had 4 cameras rolling. We have extras, we have prosthetics, we have practical effects, we have goo, we have violence, we have Motorhead, everything you could ask for. Like a lot of fun. And there was one of the characters, Zodiac. He's a break dancer dressed like the Zodiac Killer. So we have the Zodiac Killer. And the question arises, like, how do we dispatch this guy in a visually interesting way? Because on the plate, we have Toxie just like dodges him as he's like running off the stage, and then he jumps off the stage and he's meant to die. But it just does not have the immediate visceral impact of to really land as comedically as we wanted it to. And so the conversation then became, how can we kill this guy? Like, what does he jump into? On a script level, he was just meant to kind of jump off the stage. And I think they had toyed with the idea of like him landing into like something bigger and more severe, but we just couldn't shoot it with anything huge and bombastic at the time. So now the question became, how do you kill this guy? Does he land in does he land in this big pit of electrical gear? Does he land in, I remember one point Macon was like, do we even have a pit of like sharks that he jumps into? It's in line with the tone of this movie, just to have something really stupid and ridiculous. Like, think the most Tex-Avery Looney Tunes thing you can think of for him to die. And then we realized, well, the scene has to keep on moving. And it has to be immediately clear in one shot how he dies. So why not just have him explode? Like, have him just like jump off the stage. He loses control. He does a flip. And then for no reason, just like a gigantic geyser of blood.
And we got the Wilhelm scream in there as well. So we've got the classic as he dives off stage and then just explodes in this cloud of blood and gore. And yeah, and that was another thing. We did a couple of reshoots. So Delaney came up with this butt guts idea. And then another thing from the original movie, obviously, was the kid's head getting crushed. And that was something that we hadn't necessarily covered. And so one of the test screenings, something that came out of that was just, more gore. Let's have some more gore. And so we picked up that shot of like the car going over the head, and then a couple of things for the fight between Garbinger and Toxie out on the lawn of his mansion. And that was a note that people gave a few times, I think, in a couple of test screenings. Test screenings are kind of cheating. Sasha's movies are so driven by that experience of where, comedy is a very visceral thing. You either laugh or you don't. And you learn so much from those screenings. And so on this movie, it was, yes, where the jokes come, but it was also, are we not fully serving as much blood and guts and gore as we possibly could? And so little pieces were picked up along the way to, the Miss Meat kind of inserts of the mop bucket and the butt guts. And, we had this lovely tracking shot going down the window, which was originally construed as just one shot with things spatting up and lots of fantastic kind of voiceover supporting the mayhem. But then we started to intercut that sequence with these shots that we picked up, and people seem to enjoy it more.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad we went back and we got that. I love that sequence now so much more.
Speaking of, can you sort of talk about what the collaboration with VFX looks like and how far along the VFX is when you start editing the footage and how it changes as you go through the process?
I guess that the kind of mantra for this movie was, let's make it feel as practical as possible, right? Because that's how it used to work with, you'd have syringes back in the day when 1984, when the original movie was made. So like something's pulsing on Toxie's head, it was done with like an air syringe, or it was, none of them were obviously at that time. We can kind of do anything now, but it often feels painterly or it often feels like it's been constructed in a way that isn't authentic. And so I think what Macon did brilliantly was combining the more modern techniques that we have now. So the sequence that Brett just touched on about, the mop being thrown during this concert sequence and going straight through this guy's head, a shot like that would not have been obviously achievable practically. But we had Phil Tippett, right? I think that.
Yeah, Phil Tippett Studios, I think, did a lot of our.
They did a lot of the visual effects, and especially in that sequence. And obviously, he is the master of gore, right? And he and Macon got this great relationship going. And it's all about balance. It's all about weaving those more digital moments, if you like, into the more practical execution. And the fact that Toxie was performed by Louisa, and that was pure prosthetics. I think we did a few augmentations on, Toxie's right kind of bionic eye. Do you remember the discussions around that? That was crazy.
Oh yeah, I had to slate those for work. That black eye picked up everything. So reflections, mat boards, reflectors, lights. It feels like every other shot of that eye was just cleaning up something in the
you're right, every shot, in that sequence in the woods when he's sitting down and having a conversation, it's like we spent a lot of time cleaning that up. But hopefully the takeaway from fans of the movie, the original fans, is that it wasn't this kind of launching into crazy use of modern techniques. It was this tasteful balance that I think Macon achieved with it.
Definitely, it's a film that the fans are asking for practical, and so visual effects. I think it's a wonderful marriage of visual effects enhancing, augmenting, the on-set reference that we have. I think a great example would be the puppetry of our bird character, our warbler. I think
right.
That bird is all practical with some visual effect augmentation to help move the eye a little bit. Of course, remove our puppeteer, but it was very clear that at the onset, this was a movie that's going to be enhanced. Practical elements are going to be enhanced with visual effects. And we have a few things that are full CG, like the BTH factory and all the goo and all the stuff flying out the back and some sky replacements. But the order of the day was always to, make it feel tactile, make it feel handmade, really honor the original in that way.
Well, I think that you succeeded. I guess as we sort of start to wrap up, can both of you talk about anything that you're working on next that might be coming out in the near future?
This has been a really crazy year for me. I've been really fortunate that I've had 5 feature films come out. So in addition, we've been sitting on Toxie for a while, just hoping it found a great home, and I think it found the perfect partner in Cineverse. But I've had a film called Companion come out with Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher earlier this year with New Line and Warner Brothers. I had a slasher rom-com called Hard Eyes. And then coming up, I have a film with Dev Patel called Rabbit Trap. And then end of October, I have a film with Chris Stuckman called Shelby Oaks that's coming out. I'm currently working on the Carrie miniseries with Mike Flanagan. That should be coming out at some point next year on Amazon Prime. I don't know when just yet, but I'm very excited for it. I think audiences are going to be quite surprised with Mike's take on the material.
Dude, you're the hardest working man in showbiz. That's crazy. That's insane.
It's been crazy this year. It's been great. I've been very fortunate.
That's awesome. I have a couple of. So I'm just about to jump on to collaborating with Sasha on a project that he's had going for a while. So I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in on that, and then based off the success, I guess the unexpected success. Well, I guess relatively unexpected success of Minecraft. Warner Brothers are making a sequel to that, and so. We'll be jumping back in with Jared. They're writing away at the moment. I think the intention is to start shooting early next year, so kind of April, something like that. So that'll be another stint down in New Zealand and then back here for post-production. And hopefully we can top the first one.
Awesome. Trent, you want to ask the Big Kahuna?
Yeah, so this is our Big Kahuna final question. You can feel the wave crashing down over you. That's the Big Kahuna. And the final question is, what is the last great film you watched? And the only rule is it can't just be good. It has to be great. But it can be a rewatch or a first-time viewing.
Ooh, James, you go first.
Wow, that is a question. Well,
Yeah.
if it's the last thing I watched, I'm going to go with Splitsville. So I saw that in the theater, was very resistant to see it. I'm not sure why, but someone said, just go see it. It's well written. It's fun. It's frivolous. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's actually got one of, I think, the best kind of comedy fight sequences I've ever seen in a movie between two kind of rival lovers. Both guys kind of pissed off that they've each slept with the Dakota Johnson character. And that really just unexpectedly tickled me. I wasn't expecting it. I was kind of drag kicking and screaming, but actually really enjoyed it.
I got a few I can shout out. I really was touched by Sorry Baby. I thought it was quite lovely, very tender. Of course, got to give a shout out to Weapons. I think some of the most fun I've had in a movie theater this year. I never really know where that movie was going. I'm glad I went in as cold as possible. No preconceived notions where this was going. I just finished The Pit last night. My wife and I binged, I think, 6 episodes after we put our boys down to bed. I am still kind of recovering from it. And yeah, I think the last thing I'll mention, I went back and watched Paper Moon. I'd never seen it before. My wife and I went on a little bit of a Peter Bogdanovich streak where we watched Noises Off and What's Up, Doc? And then Paper Moon, of course. Just all three of these back to back. I've never really appreciated them as a filmmaker until recently. And wow.
Well, that's awesome. Trent, you want to close this out?
Yeah, thank you so much to James Thomas and Brett Bachman. They've worked on really cool films like Borat the Muppets Minecraft Movie, Pig, Companion, Hard Eyes, and together they worked on The Toxic Avenger Unrated. Thanks so much for being here, both of you. This was really great.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us. Love talking.
Well, Parth, what's done is done. And our interview with these two fine gents, it's over. But it was fun.
It was fun while it lasted, I have to admit. Thank you so much to James Thomas and Brett Bachman for, lending us some time to talk with us about editing The Toxic Avenger Unrated. They're both going on to work on some cool stuff. I believe Brett is going on to edit the Carrie series, the Mike Flanagan Carrie series, which should be coming out next year on Prime. And James Thomas, maybe Minecraft 2, maybe another Sacha Baron Cohen thing.
Yeah, he freaking edited Minecraft and Borat. So those are two cool movies for two very different reasons.
Yes. Thanks so much for coming on for that. As for what we're doing next week, it's a little tricky to bring up right now because we have an interview set up. It hasn't happened yet.
But it's supposed to. When this episode comes out,
ideally,
just think, hours later, we will be conducting the interview for the following week. And we're not at liberty to say what movie we're talking about. But Parth, I just have a quick question for you.
I like that we both are trying to
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
What are your pronouns, man?
He, him.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. And it's just like whenever I think about a little boy listening to Craft Services being like, I want to know what's coming out next week. What's coming out next week? And we don't have an answer for that little boy. I just feel so bad for him.
Parth, weird you haven't asked me what my pronouns are.
What are your pronouns?
He, him, his.
Oh.
See what I did there?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
He, him, his. Him.
His. Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Thanks so much again to James Thomas, Brett Bachman. As always, these episodes come out on all your major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, etc.
And if you've got an iPhone, if you're into the social media game, so are we. We're super into it like you guys.
Yeah, we can't wait to go on Yik Yak. Have you heard of Yik Yak, Trent?
Maybe. I don't really know what it is, though. Is it a new thing or something?
It's a new thing. It's the college students. They love the Yik Yak. The only reason I know
what
about
goes
it
down there.
You don't want to know. It's just like an anonymous social media posting. It's like, oh, the bald janitor is so fucking annoying in Dewey Hall or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can anonymously post. And it's like the Rutgers Yik Yak.
Do you remember that thing that people would do in middle school where You would like post a link. I forgot. Is it ask.fm?
Oh yeah, I remember Ask.fm.
I'm like so lucky I remembered it. Is that the one where you like ask anonymous questions?
I believe so.
You could be vicious on there. You'd be like, I think you're cute, haha, but I'm too nervous to say
Yeah.
who I am. We should bring that back, man.
Oh yeah. We should have a craft services Ask.fm.
It sounds kind of what like
craft
what
services
Yik Yak
Yik
is.
It is all the same. It is funny that like nothing changes, it just the names change. It's like Kick, that's weird. I'm on Group Me now. And it's like
They're the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Except I got groomed on Kick, but I haven't gotten groomed on Group Me.
Yeah, but I'm sure kids are getting groomed on Group Me. Except maybe not anymore, because it's not the one people use anymore. I'm sure they use like Blim Blam and Snip Snap, you know? So
Parth, getting groomed on Kick was just part of growing up. And it made me the man I am today.
yeah, and if I had a choice between being able to stop it but not know where it would lead for your future, or let everything happen as it did, I think I just have to let everything happen as it did because it led you to me.
It's like asking a person like with a disability, like if you could not be deaf, like would you? And their answer is always going to be like, no, like I'm perfectly content with the way I am. That's me having been groomed on Kick.
Yeah, you're perfectly content with it.
It brought me here, and it's been a bumpy road, but I enjoyed the ride.
And and Trent, it's Trump's America now. So getting groomed ain't what it used to be, you know?
Like I know what all those words mean, but I don't know what to respond. But
I have to be honest, Trent, it was just something that you know how sometimes you start a sentence, you don't really know where it's going. That was sort of one of those instances.
Well, if we're not here next week, it's because of whatever Parth just said. Well, I guess Kimmel's back, so we can't use that as the thing anymore.
Colbert, I guess, is evergreen.
Got Colbert. I watch Colbert's monologues, and I like him as a person, and I like that he talks about someone that I don't like, but I'm like, I don't know if this is funny.
I've reached the same point. I was a big Colbert Report guy. I like him.
I like him too.
And I like his interactions with people. I can like some of his interviews, but it is just sort of one thing that he keeps banging the drum of, which is good, but also...
Luckily, the drum, like the well, is very deep there. He keeps doing crazy stuff. But here's the censored version of what I was about to say. I love America. See you next week.
Wow. See you next week, guys.
And now they can see us next week because I love America and Parth loves America.
Thank
Parth, say it.
I love America.